You got questions? Well, we have the man to answer those questions, Jeffrey Levine from Buckingham. Jeffrey, welcome back to another episode of Ask the Hammer.
Hey, Bob, it's good to be with you as always.
So good to have you here. Question goes like this from a reader. I want to start the new year off on the right financial foot. What are some good things for me to track? Is net worth the best thing to track? What about some financial ratios like debt to income?
Yeah, I think those are all good things. Honestly, the best thing that one can do to start off, I think, is an income statement, right? Know where your income is coming in from and know where your expenses are going out. I think that to me is the very first, thing that people should have a sound understanding of because your balance sheet or your net worth, which is you'd find on a balance sheet, all that's meaningful. But at the end of the day, that's sort of giving you a snapshot of where you are today. Your income and your expenses are going to give you a lot more insight into the things that you can actually change right now. Right. So, for instance, if you have a net worth and your net worth is $250,000 net, and you really wanted it to be 700,000, well, that's great. But how are you going to get it there, right? I mean, it's nice to know where you are. Don't get me wrong. But your income statement, understanding, again, all your sources of income, interest, dividends, self-employment income, wages, Social Security, wherever that may be, understanding your total income and then comparing that to your current expenses gives you, you're going to see, am I spending more than I make each year? Am I spending less, but I'm not giving myself enough room to save enough that I will get ahead to reach my ultimate goals? So those are some those are some basic statements. Certainly, once you have your income statement or your statement of cash flows, right, which is for individuals is largely similar, right? Your cash flow, your income, and then ultimately your balance sheet. Those are sort of your core financial statement documents, if you will. From there, then you can sort of figure out whatever metrics you want. You can look at your debt to income. You can look at, I mean, if you're looking to buy a house, then there are things that are like front end ratio, back end ratio. These things, like depending upon what you're trying to do, you might want to have different amounts calculated. But ultimately, to me, what really matters is will you accomplish your goals? And what are your goals? And the best way to do that isn't with any ratio, it's with a financial plan, right?
Yeah.
That's really where it comes down to put everything I have there out on the table. What are all the things I want to do? Do I want to pay for my kids' college? Do I want to pay for kids' weddings? Do I need X amount of dollars when I retire to spend on? What are all of these things that I want to do? And am I on track? Uh, Having a financial statement or whatnot, is it helpful? Yes. But again, the key is in my opinion at least, a comprehensive financial plan is really the way to go to figure out, am I in a good place or not? Because two people might have the same net worths, but if they have very different goals, they might even have the same income, but if
Yeah.
they have very different goals, understanding that they have the same assets and the same income doesn't actually tell us anything. One may be perfectly on track because they have more modest aspirations, and the other individual has much more lofty goals and they're way away from it. So it has to be looked at in comparison or comparing to where you want to end up.
Yeah. So when I think about people, at the start of the year who are trying to establish their goals for the following 12 months,
Mhm.
assuming that they want to lower their liabilities, increase their assets, they have to look at their cash flow statement to understand how will I be able to lower my debt? Is it by, allocating more of my income toward debt repayment? Is it allocating more of my income toward savings? Is it investing more aggressively? I mean, there'll be some things obviously out of their control, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. All of those things and more. And when you feel, or when you realize rather that it's like, well, I want to do all these things, but I don't have enough. Well, now it's time to make choices,
mm,
right? Do you still want to set your budget at $500 a month to eat out? Maybe you say, I'll eat in one extra meal a month and I'll set my budget at $400 a month to eat out so that I can put $100 more towards debt repayment. But again, that goes towards what are your goals? If your goal isn't, I want to get out of debt sooner. Maybe your goal is I want to enjoy myself right now. And as long as I'm paying my debt and I pay it off eventually, I'm fine. Like that's okay. We all get to make our own choices, but it's figuring out whether you're on track with those choices. Now, the start of the year is a great time to start tracking your expenses and your income because it's a clean marker, right? Like over the first quarter or at least half a year, you probably have most of your expenses. If you keep track of it, that'll give you a really good sense. There's very few things that people pay like once annually.
Mhm.
And if they are, they're usually things you remember. For instance, I pay my property taxes where I live once annually. You better believe, Bob, I'm not going to forget about my property taxes when I go to figure out how much I owe, right? Because it's a significant number. But things like car insurance, a lot of people pay those monthly or quarterly or semi-annually. So over the course of 3 or 6 months, you can get a really good sense of where you're spending dollars. And that is the thing that we have the greatest control over, right? Our expenses. We have less control, still some control, but less control over our income because we don't get to dictate what that is. And those things, our income and our expenses, largely dictate what our ultimate net worth is, because the difference between them is how much we can invest. And of course, once you can invest, then you can let your money work for you, hopefully, as they say, and continue to compound and grow. But you can only do that once you have a surplus of cash on hand, because you got more cash than you do expenses that you need to pay right now.
Yeah. Well, we began talking about net worth, and I think it would be well worth people's time to write to us with their questions.
That's right. And they can do that anytime. They don't have to do it at the beginning of the year. They can do it at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, the middle of the year. You can do it whenever you want. Just send us your questions, as long as you do so, to the inbox at askthehammer@buckinghamgroup.com. Again, send that question to askthehammer@buckinghamgroup.com. And Bob and I look forward to tackling your questions here real soon.